we can't do this. Oh, good. Thank you. You're gonna let me stream live on my own effing group. Thank you. The little effing corner of the universe. It's mine. My goddamn name on it. Fantastic. The so effing nice corner of the universe. Nice of you, technology. Thanks for being kind.
Is that George I hear?
It's reverberation of me. I don't know where George is. I assume he's with family.
Oh. Well, I got to say, I was rather pleased with the meeting today.
That's good.
A much bigger turnout of our county committee members than I would have expected.
Okay. We are live
Seems to
on
be
Facebook, just so you know.
Oh. Well,
I don't care.
probably
It
ought to
doesn't
stop.
matter. I'm just saying, just so you know. But yeah, I'm glad you did. That's good. Hopefully everyone's optimistic and feeling.
Well, we have an unusual situation here that might work out to our advantage. There's about 10 or 12 Republicans running in their primary for county commission. We have 2 that are running as a team, which is a really unusual thing.
It's always
But
better.
the good news might be that one of the incumbent Republicans might get to be one of the 2 candidates. And he has a slew of very ugly allegations ongoing against him. And that might play
So
to
in
our
other words,
advantage.
he fits right in
Well,
to the modern party, anyway.
yeah, well, I continue to say from reading history that the Republican Party really has never changed, even with changing its name. They're a bunch of selfish, money-hungry, wannabe capitalists, robber baron types.
Well,
And
the ones that run the corporation, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
The quote unquote man on the street, if you will, person on the street, if you will, is not as they believe that they are a temporarily inconvenienced billionaire. But you would have a very hard time convincing them of that. But well, of course, what's good for the billionaire is good for me because I'm going to be a billionaire at some point too. No, you're not. No.
Unfortunately, that is in the mind of a lot of people.
You just
seem to think that there's.
You just aren't. You're not. Sorry. You're not.
You and I pretty much agree. And I had 2 grandparents, 2 grandfathers who were both holders of master's degrees, both in education as a career. And they were good Republicans. And they took the view that, the Republican Party is the party of the good people. We're the good people. We're not that base, lousy proletariat trash, that goes out and strikes for labor conditions and all that. We're better than that. We're professionals and we're good people.
I will be right back.
Yeah.
I forgot that I can barely breathe. My nasal spray and my Tums. Probably need that at
How's
some
that again?
Oh, goodness. We are 4:58, I think it is. Sorry about that.
Looks coming up on 5, yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
Well, I probably ought to mute myself and just listen.
Well, we have no scheduled guests. If you want to talk, you talk anytime you want.
By the way, I have to say I approve of the way you pronounce Schedule.
Well, there's they called the Queen's English by mistake today.
Yeah, well, it tracks back to the original Germanic rather than the Nordic and Holland Dutch tendency to pronounce that sk.
Speaking of which, though, I think I forgot to send it to you. There was 2 historical articles this week. One, that an experimental submarine from 1920 something was found off the coast of Connecticut, off of the submarine base Groton, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I will try to find that. And then another interesting, a young girl who was just walking around with a metal detector found a cache of 1,000-year-old Viking coins
No kidding.
outside of a village in Denmark, which I thought was quite
No.
fun.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was quite fun, actually.
Yeah. I'd like to see what they look like. I'm not quite familiar with what the Norsemen were coining.
We'll have to, we'll find
I've
out.
seen Roman coins. I've even seen Greek coins. I've seen Dutch coins, British coins. Interesting little sidelight. How do we come up with the name dollar for our currency?
No, I used to know that. I don't know it anymore.
Well, originally the silver was found in southeastern Germany in a valley. And the German word for valley is related to our word vale, and in German it's Tal. So something from a Tal valley would be a taler. And it wasn't too much after that the Spanish and Austrian connection with the Habsburgs getting the throne of Spain, that Spain started using the term dollar.
Okay.
Dollar.
We gotta push.
Go ahead.
104. Yep. Well, it's, knock the mic over. It's a good start. Hey, what do you say? What do you say we do a show? Oh, maybe I should
I'll mute and listen.
hold on. Maybe I should get myself together first.
By the way, when are we going to do Paprikash again?
Well, it's getting light out longer. It'll be easier for you to drive. Okay, let's kick this thing off.
Okay, I'm leaving. I'll listen.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know to do. To you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. But it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom. Hey, wow, don't I sound stuffy? I guess it's allergy time. From my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third off from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 23rd of April 2023. I just said that and I thought to myself, I don't think you have the right date. I think I do. Yeah, that's the 23rd. I have to say, well, first off, let's get to the business end of the program. This is it, kids. It's you and me. We will go either as long as I can talk or as long as you feel that you want to participate. I don't know why I almost said participate. That would have been wrong, wouldn't it? This is as good a time as any. If you have never called us before, if you have never dropped a comment in the chat, if you have never asked a question, this is a great time to do it. It is you and us, and that's it. I mentioned during our anniversary program last week that as desperately as I love doing this show, one of the biggest pains about it is begging for guests. As usual, I cast a very large net, and I might ask, some weeks I will ask a half a dozen different people, and I did this week, and it just turns out no one answered. And look, that's okay. Any guest on our program, and I mean literally any single one, is doing us the favor of their time. It's a Sunday evening. It's a very traditional family time of the week. We're winding down the weekend, trying to get ourselves together to start a new week of work. For most people, I realize that not everybody works, the standard 9 to 5, but still, I think the majority of the country does. I should think the majority of the planet still does, but I know not everyone. So I understand it's a great favor for anyone to give us a try and to join us and all of that. So we cast a net as we usually do. No takers this week, so it is you and us, and that is as simple as it gets. We will go for as long as you want to keep the conversation going. And if you want to go to bed early, we'll do that too, because I happen to get up at 5. Or I happen to get up at 5 a.m. For work. So very simple. Very, very simple. Let me also say welcome to all of you. Of course, we are back for yet another week. We celebrated our anniversary last week, and here we are back again for yet another week. There is a lot to discuss, but let's get through the business end of the program. We have shared the program to 104, I think it is 105 places across the Facebook universe. I already see quite a number of groups who have said approved, welcome, all of that good stuff. Thank you. To every single individual group, page, et cetera, that allows us to be part of your little corner in the Facebook universe. Thank you. It is one of the pillars of our program, and we couldn't do it without you. To our sisters, brothers, friends, and family at hot101.net, thank you for being there yet again. It is always a humbling honor to be with you every single week. as a part of the Hot101.net family. And we thank you for allowing us to be here, part of your family as well. We appreciate it deeply. And of course, the TCP Media Group, right from our own Lancaster, PA, the third pillar, if you will, of our stool, so to speak. Most chairs have 4 legs, ours has 3. But yeah, it's we couldn't do it without you. It quite literally couldn't do without you. So thank you for being there as well. There is a lot that we could really get into this week, but I think the obvious place to start. Oh, I should back up a second and tell you that the phone number is already on the screen, and that is 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Talk to us. Give us a shout. Give us a ring. Let's chat with each other on this. What it actually really turned out to be quite a lovely Sunday. I'm not sure it was supposed to be this nice, but turns out we got lucky, and it's a really, really pretty day. We had the dog out. Well, Kristen had the dog out for a very long walk this morning to try to wear her out a little bit. She's got so much energy. I had her out a couple different times where she was a little more quiet. But it's a pretty day. Opened up some windows. I know it probably affected my allergies, but it was nice to just get some fresh air through the house. And a really lovely day. I mean, I remember going back to around Easter, wishing you all, of course, a lovely, lovely Easter weekend, and that even if you didn't celebrate or take to the more faith-based and religious senses of Easter, that the idea of spring and renewal, I wished you all that as well, and I think we're seeing it. We're seeing it. We had a couple 80 plus degree days this week. We had a 90-degree day, I think, last week. And it's it's spring, and it feels pretty darn good to me. And it's just flat out true. The older I get, the more I need the warm weather. I can't deal with the cold weather anymore. So anytime it gets a little bit warm, that the sun's out, I feel pretty darn good. And it was a lovely day today. Let me also let's get to kind of the program, if you will. So I'm wishing you a very lovely, I hope you had a wonderful weekend as we wrap up our weekend and get ready for another week. I hope everyone out there as well. And we, of course, to every group, page, individual, everyone at 101, everyone at TCP, thank you for being there. So let's get into the program. I think I would be remiss. I really, really would be kind of missing the boat here if we did not start with Fox so-called news settling the Dominion lawsuit for $787 million. And what does all of that mean? Well, there's the obvious, because we can start with the hypocrisy of it, insofar as so many of the hosts, if you will, wink, wink, at Fox would love to tell you that, guilty people or innocent people don't settle. You only settle, you only plead the fifth, you only when you're guilty. So gee, what a shock. Fox settled. So there's that. They settled in what sounds like a bit of a panic, shall we say, because Dominion and their lawyers were planning to make Rupert Murdoch himself their very first or second witness. And so lo and behold, Fox settled before that could happen. Among the people they were planning to call as witnesses were all of the primetime hosts that openly lied about Dominion. And how do we know that if we know that they never went to trial, they didn't testify? Well, because the discovery period of the trial that we've talked about on this program told us pretty much everything we needed to know. The internal emails, the internal text messages, all told us that Fox knew it was lying and continued to do so simply for ratings. Simply because people tuned in. And they knew that what they were talking about was a lie. They knew it. Those texts and emails also told us that people like Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham were actively trying to tell the Trump regime that you have to stop lying about these things. We know about the text messages that came out during the January 6th special committee, including the emails from Tucker Carlson saying how much he actually hates Trump. Not that you would have known that from the interview they conducted this week. But it would seem to me that Fox settled this to make it go away because they knew they were going to lose. And I don't know, actually, if there were supposed to be cameras in the courtroom. It would have been gripping television to watch Rupert Murdoch sit up on that dais in the witness stand and say, yes, I know that we lie. And yes, I know. And see Tucker Carlson going, yeah, I lied about the whole thing. Or perjure themselves, which would have also been quite entertaining to see if rich folks like that actually would get tried for perjury, because God knows the rest of us would. Us, serfs and peons out here, we would have certainly got arrested for perjury. But the trial would have been fascinating television, and it would have been a fascinating window, if you will, portal into the post Telecommunications Act world. Why would I say that? Because we know what it's like to live in this world post Telecommunications Act, this massive consolidation of media in this country. Dare I even say lack of actual real media? We have an overabundance of quote unquote infotainment, but we don't have a lot of media. So I think the trial itself would have been quite fascinating. It would have been absolutely fascinating television. I also think Fox knew that this would have been perhaps profoundly damaging to their brand. I don't think it would be going out on a limb to say that it may well have been fatal to News Corp and Fox News. Live video of Rupert Murdoch, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and a host of others. Lachlan Murdoch, Maria Bartiromo, Lou Dobbs, having to sit on a witness stand under threat of perjury, under oath, and say, yes, we lie all the time. I have to think, I would like to hope it would have been fatal. Would that die-hard 30, 35, 40% of Americans who just live, breathe, never think on their own, take anything that Fox says as gospel, no pun intended? Would they have finally been snapped out of it? Would maybe 5% of them been snapped out of it, 10%, 20%? To hear the people who run Fox and who own it say, yes, we lie all the time, under threat of perjury themselves, because certainly a lily white, born with a silver spoon in his mouth person like Tucker Carlson was never going to go to prison. I don't think he'd last 5 minutes. But that said, I take this settlement as panic and nothing more than that. Now, there seems to be I have seen conflicting reporting on whether Fox admitted any guilt. Dominion says yes, Fox says no. But again, by Fox own gospel, again, no pun intended, if you settle, it's an admission of guilt. It's what they have said about, every Republican-led investigation, every show trial that a Republican Congress has put ahead, that if you ignore the subpoena, if you fight the subpoena, if you plead the fifth, if you settle, any of that stuff, it's just an admission of guilt. And so by their own definition, admitted guilt. And rather than revel in that, rather than celebrate it, I mean, I think it is kind of funny. I think it's very ironic. I think it shows a level of hypocrisy that a very good percentage of our population needs to wake up to. But it's also very, very sad. Democracy demands, the health of any democracy demands, at a absolute minimum, you need at least two parties to function. We're not a functional democracy at this point in this country because there's only one political party left. You need at least two. You need two different points of view. You need two different sets of policy proposals. You need two separate. We don't have any of that. We have one party standing for lots of different things and the other one trying to crush the party that stands for lots of different things. And that's it. In fact, they're not a party, they're a corporation. As we have said many times here. So to an extent, as illuminating, as hypocritical, as ironic, as guilt-laden as this settlement between Fox and Dominion is, it's also sad to an extent because a very large portion of our population still will take everything that Fox tells them as the gospel truth, even after it has been shown under oath, sworn testimony through the discovery process and the grand jury the discovery process, the deposition process, that Fox knows it lies for a living. And yet again, 30%, that MAGA diehard red hat portion of our population still won't change the channel. That should scare us, and it should be sad. It should give us pause. It should give us great cause for concern. The other thing that I think we need to wrap our heads around, respectfully, my side of the aisle, if you will, needs to wrap its head around, is the quote unquote disappointment with Dominion for not pursuing this to its conclusion, for agreeing to settle in the first place. And I can only say, what did you expect? Why? We're disappointed because we wanted to see this trial reach a conclusion. We wanted a jury to stand up and say, Fox, you're guilty. In open public court, we wanted them to say, you're guilty. You're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty. And we wanted Fox to be stripped of $1.5 billion. But let's keep in mind that these are two corporations against each other. Dominion only sued because it was losing business. Because the lies that Fox was putting out were hurting business. If their business had not been affected, they never would have pursued this suit in the first place. They did not pursue this lawsuit out of any sense of justice, morality, fairness. It'll be good for the country to expose Fox. They don't care about any of that. They don't care about that. If ABC had said it, they would have sued ABC. If CNN had said it, they would have sued them. If MSNBC had said it, they would have sued them. If Tom Hartman had said it, they would have sued him. If Stephanie Miller had said it, they would have sued her. This was about business. This wasn't about exposing what Fox really is, what most of us know, and accept what they are. We're not happy about it, but we know exactly who they are. It's because it hurt business. If Lou Dobbs had gone on his show and lied about Dominion the way he did, and Dominion never saw a dime's worth of profit drop, they probably would never have pursued the lawsuit. They were losing contracts. They were losing business. They were having other contracts ended early, paid out, so that municipalities didn't use Dominion anymore. It was a business crisis. They didn't care about truth. They still don't. This was not some crusade of honesty. I don't think anyone at the boardrooms or CEO of Dominion sat back and said, well, we have to do this for the good of the country. I don't think they care. I don't think they care, even a little, to be honest. They're all mega multimillionaires and billionaires. They make billions and billions of dollars on elections, something that was never supposed to be profitable in the first place. Those billions were threatened, so they had to take action. They didn't care about exposing Fox. The truth of those text messages and emails, the fact that Fox in the upper floors of its corporate office, I should suspect, to be quite honest with you, all the way down into the basement and the mailroom and the sanitation room. The fact that they admitted, rather than perjure themselves, admitted that they lie for a living is a good thing. Now, again, most of us already knew that. But hopefully some of the folks who pay no attention to that learned something. But imagine the power, the powerful, powerful images that we have been denied by not seeing the Murdochs, Carlson, Hannity, Ingram, Bartiromo, Dobbs, on a witness stand under oath, under threat of perjury, to look at a jury and say, yes, oh, I lied about all of it. It was good TV. We're not news, we're entertainment. We do not have a reasonable expectation that people will believe what we say. We've been denied that. Well, why were we denied that? Because one corporation just took $750 million off of another one. And the settlement will be enough to preserve Dominion's business, its reputation. They had no interest in bankrupting Fox. They had no interest in doing the greater societal good by exposing Fox for what it is. They just got a boatload of money. Their business has been vindicated and protected. Wash our hands of it. And and by the way, both corporations don't have to continue to pay lawyers $10,000 an hour. His settlement wasn't for you or for me. It wasn't for the good of the country. It's for the good of the two corporations. Fox never had to take the witness stand. Dominion got $750 million and kept its reputation. There's a good proportion of us who has seemed to have become misled that this case was about us, that it was about truth, that it was about democracy and the integrity of the vote. It was nothing of the sort. It was about business. If this truly was some sort of moral crusade, Dominion never would have settled. But they settled because they don't care. Because it's not a moral crusade. Because it's not about truth. It's not about saving democracy. It's about saving corporate profits. If Dominion had been owned by Tom Steyer or some, I would normally say some progressive billionaire, but there's only about 3 or 4 of them, who started the company for the sake of protecting democracy, then maybe, yes, we see it all the way through. And maybe, yes, the actual goal would have been to destroy Fox News and to end it. But Dominion doesn't care about that. They got a boatload of money and they kept their reputation, if not restored it. Fox took a bunch of hits, but never had to take their witness stand and never had to pay the full amount of money that they were being sued for. It's a win-win for the two corporations. It's not a win for the United States, and it's not a win for democracy. And it's not a win for the restoration of actual real media. Hell, it's not even a victory for the First Amendment. It's two corporations who exchanged a lot of money and protected each other from ruin, rather directly or indirectly. 5:32 Eastern Time, Eastern Daylight Time. It is the 23rd of April, 2023, and the Kennedy Effect is live with you. No scheduled guests. It's you and us. And that's it. Call, don't call, comment, don't comment. It'll just be shorter. I guess if you're sick of me, you probably won't comment. Comments, questions in the chat. Take your phone calls. We'll go as long as we go. George is here. Very happy to have him here. I know that Sundays are usually very tough days, helping to take care of elderly family. It is kind and generous of him to be here, and it's not the same without him. And we're very, very glad that he's in the building. Well, in the virtual figurative building, if you will. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we've shared the program to well over 100 places yet again this week. Thank you for allowing us on your pages, in your groups, on your individual timelines, whatever it is you want to call it, your corner of the Facebook universe. Thanks for allowing us to be there. We hope you enjoy the program. You can stay right there and listen, watch. You can even try to enter your comments right there. I'll do the absolute level best I can possibly do to keep up with them. But we invite you to come. It's right there on the screen. We invite you to come to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, and put your comments and questions in there, and I will answer them. Hot101.net, our sisters and brothers there. Our name is our web address. There's no type of internet connected device on this planet where you cannot listen to hot101.net. Desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth headphones, Bluetooth in the car. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net, but you don't have to go to the website to do it. You can use the apps. Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and for all other types of devices, the TuneIn Radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you can listen to us there. Great thing about the apps, you have nothing to do. You tap it, it opens, it plays. There's nothing to switch. There's nothing to search out. There's nothing to, you tap it, it opens, it plays, period, piece of cake, easy. And of course, TCP, the Culture Professional, the TCP Media Group, from right here in our humble Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, from the Lancaster area. And they're very large, very active, very smart, very informed Facebook audience, and they're smart and informed because of TCP. We are happy to be part of the TCP family as well. Our phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. So that is the, I think, probably the biggest story of the week. The other huge story, of course, is the continuing court battles over what is generally regarded as the abortion pill. And this continued assault on the bodily autonomy of women. I have made this case here on the program before that, dare I say, joke, because it really isn't a joke, that Republicans, yeah, they sure do want to return us to the 50s, the 1850s. Sometimes I think maybe the 1150s with the lords and the serfs. But the debate about mifepristone, in my humble opinion, and this is, I am very willing to admit that this may not be a woman's point of view. And that maybe this even to some women might even be an insensitive point of view. If the Supreme Court or any court, and by the way, remember the Christian conservative, the Christian fascist groups that brought this lawsuit in the first place picked that Trump appointed judge in that district in Texas. He was chosen. They went judge shopping and they found themselves a judge who was going to give them the result that they wanted. That this is why this man was put there during the Trump regime. But this case, and again, this might be a very uniquely male point of view. It might even be a bit of tunnel vision. So for our childbearing potential audience, I hope you'll forgive me a bit of male privilege. Not privilege really, but maybe what I should say is a male bit of blinded bit of view. Because I think this case is actually bigger, more wide-ranging, with much more implication than just mifepristone and just the abortion pill. What the suit actually challenges is the FDA's, Food and Drug Administration's, authority to approve the use of these drugs. As I read it, now, any constitutional scholar out there, any lawyer that wants to correct me, I beg you to please do so. I don't like being wrong, and I like learning things that I didn't know. But it would seem to me, having read the basis of the suit in the first place, that they're not necessarily challenging, they're not challenging the abortion pill directly. They're using this very circuitous legal route to challenge whether the FDA has the authority to approve the drug in the first place. Now think about that. Think about the thousands of different medications that the FDA has approved, regulates, monitors, tests, etc. And then let's take another step to say that what this Trump handpicked judge in Texas, let's say it stands, that the Supreme Court actually lets it stand to say that no, the FDA actually cannot regulate and approve these drugs. You will have thousands of lawsuits for every drug that the FDA has ever approved. The anti-vax crowd will now sue the FDA for they'll go to court to have every type of vaccine you can think of removed from the market. Hell, somebody will be dumb enough to sue to have aspirin removed from the market. Penicillin. Maybe some of those lawsuits might actually be good. They'll probably sue over opiates. But that's, I think, at least to me, in my limited legal experiences, this is what the Supreme Court really needs to think about. This isn't just about the abortion pill. Now, if you're a woman, you're damn straight that that's forward thinking in your brain, that this is yet another form of fascist and authoritarian control over my body. If I'm a woman of childbearing, well, if I'm any kind of woman, I shouldn't even just say of childbearing years. If I'm a woman of any shape, age, race, color, creed, you name it, I'm thinking here is a very small group of white men trying to control me on yet another level, because the decision to reverse Roe, whose legal standing is extremely weak at best, is now trying to control me on yet another level. I get that. So perhaps my point of view comes, if not solely, then largely from the point of view that I'm a male. But it would seem to me that if this case is allowed to stand, if this decision by this fascist judge, handpicked, appointed, a Federalist Society, Leonard Leo found and paid for judge in Texas is allowed, if this decision is allowed to stand, that actually, by the way I read it, if I'm understanding it correctly, that the FDA cannot approve this drug, which would then extend itself to all the others, you will literally have thousands of lawsuits starting within the next few weeks over every type of medication that the FDA has ever approved. And who will challenge these? Who will bring these cases? Well, Big Pharma. If the FDA approved lavender to help people fall asleep, they'll challenge that because we want you to buy our drug. The tobacco industry could go to court to challenge the FDA's approval of drugs that help people quit smoking. The alcohol industry could go to fight the FDA's approval of drugs that help people quit drinking. Do you see where this could go? Hell, the big health insurance companies might go to court to fight the FDA's approval of certain drugs that they don't want to pay for anymore. And then if they no longer have FDA approval, then they don't have to pay for them. The slippery slope of this is not just abortion. Again, I'm going to say it again. I think I've already said it 5 times. If you're a woman, I mean, it's not restricted just to women because this decision, concerns me as well for the fascist repercussions of it. But yes, I understand that the decision is centered on mifepristone. If I'm saying that correctly, I have a feeling I might not be. I get it. I'm not ignoring that part of it. But again, as the case was brought as I understand it, it was challenging the FDA's authority to approve and the method by which they approve these drugs in the first place. If that approval process is thrown out, then for all intent and purpose, the FDA has been neutered. And by the way, the capitalists want that anyway, because geez, government overreach. God, heaven forbid we'd have a government agency that would protect you from the pills that you put in your face, from killing you, maiming you, sterilizing you. Regulations are not just regulations, they are protections. And there are parts of the pharmaceutical industry that don't want those protections. They want to make a drug and send it to market and make money, even if it does nothing of what they claim it does, or if it kills people or destroys their internal organs, blinds them, whatever it might. Think of everything you can possibly think of. They don't care about that part. This case is about the continuation of the FDA as we know it. That is how I see it. It's about the continuation of the FDA as we know it. If this ridiculous ruling out of Texas is allowed to stand, if the Supreme Court is as bought and paid for as we all think they are, know that they are after reading about Clarence Thomas, then this very well could be the end of the FDA as we know it. And I'm not so sure that that's not part of the point. As much as, if I take this off, kind of looks a little more fun without it. I'm not so sure that this wasn't part of the point, was to end the FDA. Yes, the Christian fascists want to make sure that a woman under no circumstances whatsoever can have any autonomy over her own body. After all, these Christian fascists simply consider women to be birth canals. They're not supposed to work. They're not supposed to have an opinion. They can't own property. They're just women. They were created to give birth. That's how some of these people think. But what could be the end of the FDA is something to seriously worry about. We have to think about that. This very well could be the end of the FDA as we know it. Not knew it, because it isn't over yet. But yeah, we have to think about that. Again, that's how I take this. I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot, as many, many different people will tell you. But this case to me is an awful lot more about the continuation of the FDA, period. Whether the FDA is going to continue to exist. The abortion pill is simply the first shot in that fight. Now, if this is overturned, and if the Supreme Court were to say this case can go nowhere, no, we're not going to accept this decision. We are not going to end the FDA. Well, then that will be the end of it, at least in my opinion. Because how do you continue to bring lawsuits against the FDA's ability to regulate and approve different drugs when it's already been shot, when that challenge is already being answered and shot down? But if it should be allowed to stand, this will be the end of the FDA. Then they'll start, you can easily at least see in your brain that they will start to go after food regulations. We're going to sue over the process, by the way, that the Food and Drug Administration monitors slaughterhouses. Or whatever, I don't know, pick it, big farm or corporate agriculture, because we don't want those. It affects our profits. You can see where this is going to go. Big banks can then start suing the Securities and Exchange Commission because we don't like the way they regulate us. This is a very full frontal attack on government itself, using the abortion pill as the gateway to what I could see to be literally thousands of different lawsuits that would slowly but surely peel away and end the protective powers of the federal government as we know them. I don't think it's alarmist. I don't think it's hyperbole. It's just how I look at it. But you tell me if you disagree. Area code 570. Oh, are you calling me?
Yes.
The boss is on the line.
Hey, I heard.
Why are you calling? Are you calling me to see if I remember to reheat dinner for you? I did.
I heard you were talking about the Supreme Court. You know, I was going to call.
You're also supposed to be driving, young lady. So
Well, that's
respectfully, please be careful. This program is not important enough.
That's what hands-free devices are for.
Except that you don't have one.
Well, comes on speaker.
Yeah, well, we know how awful a speaker is Kristen and I both have iPhone 12s. The speaker on them is absolutely. It is dreadful beyond words. It is. I would say, look, I love Apple and I love Apple devices. I'm not necessarily thrilled with the way they operate as a corporation. I think it's pretty scary that they're the first. Their corporate valuation now is, I think, almost $3 trillion. That's really frightening.
Yeah, it's a small country.
Yeah, but we've had, well, way more than, yeah. I mean, the gross domestic product of the planet is around $72 trillion. The Apple's 3 trillion of that. That's pretty frightening, to be honest. I've never had anything other than iPhones. I love Apple. The two iPhone 12s that her and I have are absolutely, I'm gobsmacked at how poorly they work on occasion. But that's a whole different topic for a different day. I'll get sued by Apple probably within moments. But go ahead. Yes, I talked about the Supreme Court. So go on then. Correct me.
What's shocking to me about where the conservatives on the court have gone with the issue, particularly with the issue of abortion rights and reproductive care, is to stake out a legal vein of argument that says the science doesn't matter, the facts don't matter. My opinion or my belief, or even my belief in something that is not true, is just enough to be able to enact what I want to enact. I mean, I think that's what we're seeing on steroids in this case.
I'm arguing from the point of view that not just act how I want to act, but how to not act how I don't want the government to inspect my slaughterhouse floor to see that it's sanitary and that the meat that we're processing isn't going to kill people. It's expensive. Yeah. I don't want that. So I'm going to sue to say that you don't have that right. Or JP Morgan who pays a $600 something million fine because that was actually Wells Fargo, because they were their associates were creating fake accounts in people's names and charging them the fees. And it was the government that came and said, you can't do this. Well, we don't like that. So we're going to sue to try to remove your ability to do such things. I understand that this is yet another, layer of the onion of the abortion debate and the overall control over women. But I think what might be the quiet part of this is we're slowly going to peel back every single last bit of regulatory power of the federal government.
That, I think what's interesting about the argument that they're trying to put out is that the reason that they are challenging the FDA approval of mifepristone is this argument that the FDA violated its own rules by fast tracking approval of this medication, that they cut corners, that the drug was dangerous, that it didn't go through enough vetting, enough clinical trials, none of which is true. So I guess that's where I see the similarity. I agree with you. The result of that philosophy is a future where we could imagine that they could challenge other drugs, whether they're hormone therapies or vaccines that they disagree with.
Oh, I think the vaccines would be a really quick target.
Especially with all the misinformation that is out there about how, Operation Warp Speed, it did not remove steps in the approval process. It just streamlined them so they could happen simultaneously. Instead of having to complete step A to get to step B, you could run step A and step B at the same time. But to me, that's the larger, really scary aspect of where we are. And for a long time, it's been confined to abortion care, and that's where I agree with you. I think it's going to bleed into other issues where the end goal is that cultural conservatives just want to win, and they don't care how they get there. They don't even care if, a subsequent case completely contradicts the argument in this case. Doesn't matter. Just trying to get the end result that I want. And that's a really scary world to live in. I look back to the Hobby Lobby case, and the court literally said it doesn't matter if the argument that Hobby Lobby owners are making that IUDs cause abortion is flatly false and not supported by evidence. They believe it. And because they believe it, that's enough.
Imagine an ocean liner company that believed the earth was flat. I suspect the global flow of goods would suffer rather quickly.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's going to be really fascinating is mifepristone is used for other health concerns. So if they revoke the FDA approval, it doesn't just impact abortion care. So do they then try to backtrack? Do they then try to create a carve out, for these other health conditions where people really desperately need, in addition to abortion care, where people desperately need this drug, there are going to be other health concerns that people have this product.
Right. I don't think that was the point, though. I mean, I think the point was to go after the abortion part of it. But yeah, I do know that the medicine is used for other things. But I just see this as I said, I'm probably on the half dozen time that I've said it now. I understand entirely why women have their hair on fire about this. All of us should. From the party of small government and freedom and personal liberties and rugged individualism, we will tell you how to live when we see fit. And you will like it and accept it, and that will be the end of it. What happened to that party? That's what this is about.
Yeah.
The supposed party of small government. We don't like, and remember how much they used to scream during the Obama administration about activist judges legislating from the bench. This ruling out of Texas is the absolute epitome of that. If you were to look it up in Webster's, there's a picture of it. This so-called ruling. from this so-called jurist, this judge, who's decided that a 30-year-old process used by the FDA to approve medications is no longer valid, or at least certainly not for this particular one. But again, I'm telling you, it is simply the beginning. It is the beginning. There will be, if this is allowed to stand there, every medication that the FDA has ever approved will be up for lawsuit, and then it will spread. It will spread to food protections. It will spread to clothing protections. It will spread to automotive protections, and it will sure as hell spread to hedge fund and banking and insurance protections of the public from these companies. We are suing because we don't approve of the FEC's election rules. We're suing because we don't approve of the Securities and Exchange Commission's banking rules. We're suing because we don't believe the Department of Transportation has a right to tell us to put a seatbelt in a car. And it could take decades for all of these things to filter through, but this is the start. And sadly, the women of this country are on the front lines of it yet again. They are the ones on the front lines. Let me do a reset. We're at the top of the hour. We are entering 1 hour in the books, beginning our second hour to 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on the Kennedy Effect live for April 23rd, 2023. Just you and us this week, folks. We'll go as long as we can hold our breath, so to speak, and keep talking. Your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your opinions, agree with me, disagree with me, yell, scream, throw things at me, call, agree, disagree, whatever it might be, are overly encouraged and welcomed this week. Be it on Facebook, if you email us, tweet at us, whatever it might be, this is the time for you to take part in the program. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we've shared the program to well over 100 places yet again this week. And to all of the places that have accepted our program, we send our most sincere and humble thanks. You can stay right where you are, continue to watch, listen, but your comments will most easily and immediately be seen at our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. To our entire Hot101.net family, not just the fellow DJs, but to the hundreds of thousands listening around the world. We thank you very much for giving us a couple minutes of your listening day. For those of you in the Far East and in the Australia, New Zealand area where Hot 101 does have a good number of listeners, it's already Monday. Happy Monday to you. Our Monday is coming up pretty quick here in the States as well. And to the rest of the Hot 101.net listeners around the world, thank you very much for giving us a chance, letting us be part of your listening day yet again this Sunday. And of course, if you don't know how to listen to Hot101.net, then you're not paying attention, because I tell you multiple times, every single time. Our name is our web address. Any internet connected device can get Hot101.net. And if you have an Apple device, you can go to the Apple App Store, get our app there. If you have an Android device, go to the Google Play Store, and of course the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net and TCP, the Culture Professional from Lancaster. The second hour of the Kennedy Effect begins where we ended the first hour, talking about the Supreme Court inserting itself. And actually, really, they are the court of last resort. The Constitution says that. So there's no question really that this decision was going to get to the Supreme Court. You have dueling rulings, if you will. I wasn't trying to rhyme right there, but you had the ruling come out of a federal court judge in the state of Washington saying that everything the FDA did at the time was right, that no changes should be made to the access of this medication whatsoever. And of course, you had the judge in Texas, and I use the word judge loosely. I believe the gentleman never tried a case, but was handpicked by Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society to fill this bench. And he's in his late 30s, if I'm not mistaken. So there's an excellent chance he's going to be there for another 30, 40, 50 years doing what he's doing, if he isn't promoted to a higher bench, which, of course, a decision like this and all the money behind it would probably get him promoted. But we have these dueling cases. So Supreme Court is the case of last resort for that. It was interesting to me that it was Justice Alito, the man who wrote the decision overturning Roe, even with all of its legal inaccuracies and weaknesses. It was he that said that this medication would continue to be available in its current state, in its current availability, until the Supreme Court were to decide which of these two rulings is the correct one, unless they decide to write a whole new ruling and write law out of thin air, as they have done so often. This current iteration, this Republican Supreme Court. So that is where we begin the second hour. My much better half is on the highways and byways of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, finding her way home on what is still a very bright, sunny, and lovely spring day here in the Commonwealth. So go ahead, young lady. We have to do our business at the beginning of the hour.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it was Alito. I think it also, when I saw that, I was like, oh, what's this space? Because I think with this case in particular, I think the other interesting thing that is popping up was this judge in Texas's nod to the Comstock Act and trying to revive that law and really effectively push to criminalize gaining this medication through the mail, something that had actually been struck down and it seems, at least for now, unconstitutional by the court. So it's a breathtaking rewrite of the law to single out one sector of the, population of the citizenry and say you are not, your rights are not equal to the rights of everyone else.
The majority of the citizenry, by the way.
Yeah.
Women are almost 57, I believe 57% of the population.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a starker argument for why we need the ERA than what's happened in the last year. And I should preface that with saying, we're not the only group that they are attempting to do this to. They're attempting to do it to people of color. They're attempting to do it to people who are LGBTQ. It's a reactionary segment on the court that wants to social engineer the country, but do it from the right.
But isn't it just another arm of the billionaires and the former political party that they own and operate? The Supreme Court is just an extension of that now. It has inserted itself into this slicing and dicing and marginalizing and making ever smaller and smaller groups within this country, so that we either turn on each other or that it becomes harder for us to defend ourselves from the billionaire class. When
Fault line on religion. I think this is about religion. This is about a reactionary, backward-looking church versus a church that wants to, actually live by the teachings that it professes. If you look at the court, look at how many of them are Catholic, look at how many of them are conservative Catholic.
I believe 7 of them are Catholic.
Yeah. Amy Coney Barrett was a part of a very, very
Cultish.
Cultish social club. Alito was part of, I believe still is part of Opus Dei, or an Opus Dei affiliate.
Do you actually think that some of these decisions are I hate to use the word, I can't think of a better word, legitimately faith-based.
Yeah.
I think they're purely monetary. But Judge Alito was a wealthy man when he reached the Supreme Court. He is now an infinitely wealthy man. Clarence Thomas was very economically secure human being when he got there because his wife was, part of these conservative think tanks. She took huge paychecks. He is now fabulously wealthy. I don't know that their actual faith or whatever they try to push off as faith is actually any part of this as much as it is the continued decimation, dismantling, disintegration of democracy right in front of us, segmenting us into smaller and smaller groups so that we cannot stand up for ourselves, or that if we, or the continuing to convince one group that if the other gains anything, they must be gaining it at the expense of you. This is a 99% versus 1% thing, and sadly, women, the 57% of the population, the women of this country are the ones who are being put in the front lines, as is the trans community, as is the LGBTQ community. When it comes to this particular decision itself, this abortion pill decision, it's women on the front lines. They're the first ones. It's the return. Well, I mean, we see the transgender cases too. We could talk about that too, but it's when it comes to the mifepristone case itself, it's women on the front lines. Go back in the kitchen, stop working. You'll have babies when we tell you. You'll have as many as we tell you.
Look at some of the rhetoric that comes from Alito and from Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, I was raised going to a Catholic church. That is drilled into you. It got, just in my short little lifetime, it got way more political. And I don't exclude the fact that some of these people are melding their financial progress or personal financial gain with religious belief, but I don't think that those two are mutually exclusive. I think it actually is a really dangerous, seductive cocktail to believe in the prosperity doctrine, to believe that you're succeeding more and you're gaining more material benefit because you truly are fighting God's war. I don't think that these people don't believe the poison that they're selling. I think they do. I think they also see that there's money to be gained and there's personal benefit to be gained by pursuing it. I think both can be true.
How terribly Christian of them to pursue the wealth angle of it at the same time trying to impose that Christianity on the rest of us.
And look, it's a very well-established vein of American society and our history. I love Thanksgiving, for the food and getting together with family, despite its very problematic history. But we all have to admit, I don't think many of us would want to hang out with the Puritans. They weren't exactly what many of us would like to think of as being the epitome of Christian.
And isn't it Texas that pushed through a law this week that schools must display a copy of the 10 Commandments?
Yep.
I believe that was Texas, which, by the way, is in direct violation of the Constitution and the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. But then again, Texas doesn't care. Just as we talked about last week, these states are not laboratories of democracy anymore. They're laboratories of fascism. They're laboratories of religious fundamentalism. Do I have any particular problem with the 10 Commandments? No. They are very simple guides to a civilized society. Do they have a place in government buildings? No. Does the government specifically have a place to order that they be displayed in government buildings? Absolutely not. It is unconstitutional. It violates the Establishment Clause, period, end of story. Yet Texas does these things anyway because they don't care. We have a handful of states in this country that are no longer functioning democracies, period. There's no other way to say it.
You raise an interesting point though, because I think that is probably one of the most, potentially successful arguments to knock down the decision that Alito wrote overturning Roe. I mean, that decision really kind of blatantly says, well, you know, most religious people think that life begins at conception, and therefore I'm just going to take that at face value. Well, the Jewish faith doesn't. There are other people of religious faith who don't.
But he doesn't care about those faiths.
But I'm just saying that I think it's one of those things where it so blatantly violates the Establishment Clause that the court is almost, without saying it, setting up that argument to establish when life begins, and they have no business doing that. They have absolutely no business doing that. They can't scientifically say that definitively. What they would be doing is making a religious argument.
Well, think of the irony of them using science to defend a religious decision. But that said, so why do you suppose that the decision to overturn Roe and the decision regarding this, or what seems to be a component part of the Mifepristone decision, has not been appealed on its constitutional basis of a violation of the Establishment Clause?
Yep.
It would seem to me that the ACLU or somebody would have. I know that you generally you can't appeal Supreme Court decisions, but other cases can be brought. And it would seem to me that the first woman who was denied an abortion because of this extremely shaky, very intricately woven basket of thoughts, opinions, and various, unrelated past judgments and cases that Alito used to weave this very strange basket. That a case where a woman was denied an abortion in any of these, in any of the FSA, the Fascist States of America, could bring a new case to say that Alito's decision violated the Establishment Clause. And I'm surprised, and that's not to say that I don't know, perhaps someone has done it. I suspect it'll have to be the ACLU. It always seems to have to be the ACLU. But it would seem to me that that's very fertile ground to bring a separate case and have this whole thing re-litigated all over again.
I agree, because there's so many parts of that decision overturning Roe. He falls back on the argument of history and common practice and accepted norms in the past. I mean, and laughably is citing stuff like, one of the texts that he cites is from, I think, like the 12th or 13th century, written by a guy who actually oversaw witch trials. So I mean, it's a very weak argument, and I agree with you. The right plaintiff and the right case could knock it down on the basis of the Establishment Clause. I think the only complicating problem is that, like Scalia said, women are not in the Constitution. We're just not. We need an ERA because we are not in the Constitution the way that men are. It doesn't say that, as he said once when he was speaking to students, it doesn't mean that the Constitution, by definition, has to discriminate against women, but you're not in the document. The framers did not think of you when they wrote the document. It did not include you. The framers of the 14th Amendment did not include you either. And I think that that was a huge shock for me as a college student to have, you know, a professor explain that even for things as that you would assume would be set in law, like workplace discrimination, the bar is much higher for women to prove that they're being discriminated against. Like the case of the 3 pregnant women at Walmart, they only successfully won their suit because the manager was dumb enough to put in writing in emails that the reason that he was not accommodating their pregnancies was because he was hoping they would quit before they delivered so that the employee health insurance costs would not go up. But if he had put that in emails, they probably would have lost that case.
The correspondence between Madison and his wife Dolly show that women were thought of in the
By some of the
by some of the framers. I would say all of them, because Madison did, it is reported, did have these discussions with some of the framers one-on-one about including women in these in the Constitution itself. So they were thought of, they simply weren't included, which is yet another, you know, it's this construction, this so-called constructionalist, originalist view. Well, it doesn't specifically say women, so you weren't considered. But we know different, because the historical documents show, and the correspondence has been published between Madison and his wife show that women were, that they were considered, and Madison actually wrote back to her quite how should I put it, in quite a short tone, to say, all right, enough, I hear you, I get it, it's not going to get through. So they were thought of, they simply weren't included. And we know how much of the Federalist Papers show this as well, that discussions inside the Constitutional Congress were, how many of those discussions revolved around slavery as well? Yes, extending these rights to slaves was considered as well. It simply wasn't done. That doesn't mean that it wasn't considered, and it doesn't mean that I find sometimes for not being a lawyer, and I certainly am not one, for not being a constitutional scholar, I certainly am not one. The basic, well, maybe they aren't basic, but I guess the simplified sort of constitutional arguments that I seem to be able to make, that these supposed jurists, these, you know, top of the line in our country, you know, legal minds seem to weave together are, it's pretty frightening. It is, they are solutions seeking a problem. It really is the epitome of the, you know, that when all you see are nails, the only solution you have is a hammer.
there is also truth to the argument behind that, you know, supporters of the ERA have made, that if it's not explicit, we cannot take the risk of having to rely on having friendly jurists on the Supreme Court and the federal bench. Because if it's not written in black and white, it can always be taken away. And I think they've been proven right that we have reached a point where it does need to be added.
How far are you from home, by the way?
I am Strasburg, just past Strasburg.
Okay. I'm going to let other people call now. And then I'm probably, well, I hope that they will anyway. And so you are roughly a half hour away. So quite possibly when you are home by 7, I might say goodnight and eat dinner with you, but we'll see how it's going. We'll stay flexible. I will talk to you when you come home. I'd like to give other people a chance to talk in case they want to, just in case they want to. And if not, it'll be a short show. And George can go to bed early, and I can go to bed early. Yeah. Well, that would be two of us, wouldn't it? Maybe I just want to have dinner with you. How you like that? Take that. Take that, smarty pants. Be careful. I'll see you when you get home. All right. Bye. Phone line is open, kids. That's the boss. That's my much better half. That's Kristen on her way back from work. She worked today with her with Action Together. She was up in Scranton today. If you're familiar with Commonwealth at all, Scranton is 90 minutes from here, maybe a tad bit more, depending on how traffic is in the route that you take. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Phone line is open. I'm actually somewhat impressed with myself. I recognized her phone number because in this mobile phone era where we just sort of tap, we find a name and we tap. It's interesting that I actually recognized her phone number. Kind of almost somewhat pleased with myself for that. Let me scroll through. I should mention too that when Kristen and I were talking that something happened in Texas this week. And again, I've made this joke on the program before that Texas, the old one of their older tourist slogans was Texas, it's like a whole other country. No freaking kidding. It sure as hell is. Now more than ever. Texas leads the country in the number of books it has banned, almost 500 of them. And this week, I cannot remember, I have to be honest, I cannot remember if it's the legislature or it was the state board of education, because Texas has a state board of education. Those folks are actually elected statewide. Mandated, because again, we love small government, local control, mandated that all public schools will post a copy in some form or another of the 10 Commandments. Now, again, I have no problem. As a person of faith myself, as a Moravian, as a Christian, certainly have no problem with the life guiding lessons, with the very basic principles that are given us through the 10 Commandments. But government explicitly through the Constitution does not have the authority to impose any religion upon the citizenry. It's called the Establishment Clause. Government shall not establish a state religion. I think I butchered that a little bit. I can try to Google it while we talk. That is the establishment of a state religion. And you might think to yourself, well, the 10 Commandments, it's for Jews and for Christians. Moses himself is mentioned in the Quran. That's not the point. The point is it is out of the purview of government. Period. It's out of the purview of government. The government shall not establish. I have told you this story before, that one of the great debates that happened during the Constitutional Congress, the writing, the formation, the framing of the Constitution, if you will. One of the greatest, most vociferous, energetic debates. Jefferson and Madison on one side, sadly, most of the others on the other side, especially from Massachusetts and from the South. Massachusetts which was still to a great extent a theocratic state at that point. Again, the Puritans. That Madison and Jefferson wanted the residents of this country to have a freedom from religion. That if they chose to practice no religion whatsoever, that they would be welcomed and protected here the same as anyone who wanted to practice any religion. And so one of the great debates of the Constitutional Congress was between two words, of and from. Jefferson and Madison wanted freedom from religion. They eventually settled on freedom of religion, because the more religious folks within that made up the framers fought for it. There were framers that wanted to establish Christianity as the national religion. Massachusetts was found as a religious colony. The Puritans, freedom to practice and worship away from the king. So the difference between of and from. There are so many different fascinating historical debates that could take place if we just thought to ourselves, what if? What if John Kennedy had never been assassinated? What if Martin Luther King had never been assassinated? What if Bobby Kennedy had never been assassinated? What if Al Gore, I wouldn't say what if he won the 2000 election, we know that he did. What if the Supreme Court had not taken upon itself a power it did not have and declare George W. Bush president? What if Jimmy Carter had won a second term? What if Ted Kennedy had won the Democratic nomination in 1980 and beaten Ronald Reagan? What if after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States still did not get into World War II? What if Lincoln had never been assassinated? What if the South won the Civil War? I would argue they're still fighting it and that they're winning. There's so many what ifs in history that lead to fascinating discussions and theories and debate, and we learn from those things. They also lead to great literature. A what if, Man in the High Castle is a what if, really. But we can have so many of these debates, these what if debates. That said, one of the great what if debates I think we can have is what if Madison and Jefferson had gotten their way? And that the Constitution said that the residents of this nation shall have freedom from religion. Because we're seeing this merger. That's why Mike Malloy refers to them as the Christian fascists, the merger of religion and state, in the same way that Mussolini defined fascism as the merger of corporate and state. We are seeing the religious views of a very, very small minority that are being bankrolled by the billionaires for whatever reason. I happen to think it's control and, government control. That the imposing their religious beliefs on the rest of us. Christ himself said, "Go tell the people the good news." But he also spoke against proselytizing. Tell them the good news and let them come follow. 570-850. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, sir.
You know the caller here from Central PA.
I do, Cletus. Thank you for ringing.
You know,
Ladies and gentlemen, my father-in-law.
and this is my son-in-law. Jeff, the thing that has always got me about the ultra religious, or I should say those who are deeply religious, I apologize, I shouldn't say ultra, is here in Pennsylvania. This is the weirdest state to get like that in. Our founder was a man who created a place who said, come, worship God as you wish.
William Penn and the Quakers.
The first synagogue, the Catholic Church, he didn't mind, you know, and you would think of all things that would be held. And many a times when I talk to people, and this was a problem with our education system, it was even when I was a student, you get little in the way of Pennsylvania history. I think if you and I went out the street and started asking people, you know, who founded the state, it would be an age-oriented thing. When I was in school, Pennsylvania history was dealt for one marking period while you were being taught civics.
Mm-hmm.
My friends who are in history tried very hard. David Klinger, while he's teaching American history, to interject that during the time of the American Revolution was founded. But it is kind of sad that I read one person who recently they had out the charter given to Penn by the king for Pennsylvania. They had other information, and he said, I never realized that our state was founded to be so tolerant on religion. And I said, yeah, that's the amazing part about it. I said, I'm not saying there are not other states, but this was one where you didn't have to come in. Oh, you're Puritan. Okay, you can sit here. Oh, not Puritan. Well, you're going to have to go over here. You know, it wasn't even a requirement when you wanted to come to Pennsylvania. You know, it's not like once they got off the boat, they said, oh, what do you worship? Yeah. They just
Religious test.
Yep. And it's sad in this area up here. And then on television to listen to those people, you want to look at them and go, really? You could, where did you go to school? What part did you miss? Were you in the bathroom during some of those lessons?
You know when we were taught New Jersey state history? Fourth
when?
grade.
Yeah.
Fourth grade. And it was interwoven throughout our social studies calendar because we had social studies for the entire year. But if we were dealing with history of the founding of the country, the history of New Jersey was woven into that. If we were dealing with, you know, any of the world wars, its history, New Jersey's role in that was woven into it. When we spent time on topographical geography, the study of maps, the map of New Jersey was studied in among that. Throughout the entire year, we studied the origins, formation, everything of the state of New Jersey. Fourth grade.
Well, you're one of your first governors, and I'm going to plead ignorance because I've never really taught American history. I taught world civics and all that. Was a gentleman who was a reverend. You know, signed the Declaration of Independence.
It was Governor Morris.
Yes, I mean it's it's kind of a
Morristown, Morris County. It was Governor Morris.
Wow, isn't that amazing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but come back to Pennsylvania, it's just amazing. And I had a friend of mine who said, you know, I hate to tell you this, he said, we live up here in a predominantly German area. You look at American history. He said, during the time of the Revolution, afterwards, the people in Philadelphia, my hero, Ben Franklin, were pushing the Germans northward. They really thought that they would be a threat to the Anglo-Saxon culture. And it was kind of like, well, send them north. And, you know, if they can farm the land, fantastic. You know, we expand the borders. If the Indians get them, okay. it, I'm glad you're talking about it, but it just, with our state, it just makes me kind of hang my head. That's,
Is it possible that fascism cloaked in the Bible is easier to take? That's
what
why
that-
that's why we use religion so much as a, again, what Mike Malloy refers to as the Christian fascists, that we use religion as religion and faith as yet another a tool, maybe even a masking tool, so that I think most my words I'm looking for. I think most people consider themselves to have some sort of faith, and that an increase in faith is not necessarily opposed by very many people. The imposition of it might be, but an expansion of faith, if more and more of the American population was to self-identify as people of faith and church going, that really wouldn't bother any. But that religion is being used as yet another delivery system, if you will, for this ever increasing fascism that we see across the country. And that, if at least if it's wrapped up in a cloak of biblical justification, then it really can't be all that bad.
well, you know, the thing about the Bible is it is a book of life. And, you know, it can give you clear answers, yet many times poses questions that should peeve a lot of people off, like you do if you read the Bhagavad Gita and others. They pose questions that sit down, that I've talked to some ministers and rabbis that said, you know, if you seriously sit and you think, the answer you will come out will be one of compassion and good.
Yeah, because doesn't the New Testament also tell us that that man cannot live by bread alone? Doesn't it also tell us that you cannot serve two masters, God and money? Wasn't it Christ himself on the road to the Sermon on the Mount who tells the rich man, give away all the money that you have to the poor? That is the entrance to the kingdom of heaven. Isn't it Christ and the disciples that turn over the tables of the money changers at the temple?
There is also a simple fact that I was recently talking to a gentleman who was sitting in a coffee shop, and when he's got his Bible out, and I asked a few questions about the what they call the New Standard, you know, the New Testament. He explained it. Next time I saw him, I said, I have a nice little joke about the Father, Jesus, and Moses golfing, and it's not offensive, you know. And he just stopped me and he says, I am sorry. I am a man of faith. I cannot see this as being humorous. And I said, you really? I said, I'm sorry I offended you. I said, I've always believed that my Lord has got a good sense of humor. He has not humor. I said, have you ever looked at the duck-billed platypus? I mean, you know, and that was the philosophy behind it. I mean, but again, it's an interpretation the way they see it. It's written, it's said it, that's it.
Mhm.
Nothing else. And I've talked to a lot of rabbis, others. You know, when I was in college, there was a young man who was in our dorm who was Hindu, and we went back and forth in a conversation, never arguing, but there was nothing you walked away where you could simply say, okay, I don't think I want to become a member of a Hindu sect, but I respect what he's saying, and I can see parallels. You know, I was raised Catholic, but I consider myself more just a religious individual. I can't turn around and go, sorry, Jeff, I don't want to talk to you. You know, I know you belong to those people down there in Bethel. That's a weird group. You know, that's not like my church. No, you know. But it's the same thing here in the Constitution. Kristen, Darlene, you, I've talked about it. I gotta admit, I think a lot of people are afraid they're going to lose some power. The population is changing. The times are changing. We're going to be dealing with, and are already dealing with new technology that's going to go behind. It's not going to be like the old days. And really, you know, I think people run sometimes to the Bible and flip the pages over and look for something that will justify what they think, not what was being taught, you know. And they do that with the Constitution, you know. Oh, oh.
Yep. Yeah, that grunt pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah. Kind of like I always joke with you. I'm going to run for dictator. Why? They're going to shoot everybody. I don't.
Because I
but then
can.
Yeah, I'm going to be very much for gun control. And it scares me in the fact that they talk. They say, no, it's not bad. Yeah, kind of, if you look the definition up, you know. And I think about people like you and Kristen, and Michael and Coley, and, you know, I'll be gone. But Lord, I hope you guys don't go through that. It's just, you know, I don't think African Americans, women are going to revolt. I don't think they're going to change anything. It's going to alter some, but it's going to be a benefit for everybody, you know. And but oh well, you know where I live.
Well, I'm working on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm up here in the
In the
heartland.
hinterlands. Yeah, in the heartland,
Yeah,
if you will.
my friend. All right.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Take care.
267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Phone line is open again. I think it is an interesting question. Maybe it's a chicken and the egg question, which makes it difficult. Is, you know, what is first? Is it this imposition of religion and the control that comes after it, or is religion being used as a method of control of this further economic fascism? I can't come up with another word for it. It just is what it is. It's, you know, are we have the fascists, have the billionaires found a way to use religion and use faith as this backdoor wolf in sheep's clothing sort of cloak, as yet another layer of control over the rest of us, to think that, you know, I think even people that maybe don't have a strong faith, or even some people who don't identify as a person of faith at all, certainly would not begrudge people of faith. They would not begrudge people of increasing or refining their own faith, so that when fascism comes to you with the Bible draped around it, that perhaps you're not as afraid of it, or more willing to accept it, or don't fight back against it quite as hard. Here's the, I remember going to school when I went all through school, public school in New Jersey. And I remember in middle school, I think it was 8th grade, the state legislature passed prayer. They tried to pass legislation to put a morning prayer back in the public schools. And we said the Lord's Prayer for, I think, 2 days before somebody sued and said, you can't. It's the Establishment Clause. You can't do it. So for the time being, we had a moment of silence. If we chose to say a prayer to ourselves, that was our choice. If we stood there for a minute and thought about the ball game from the night before, or how cute Sally was across the room, that was okay too. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't have a problem with that. Moment of silence is fine. If someone wanted to say a prayer to themselves, and they had the freedom to do that. But where It ran afoul of the Constitution was the imposition of it, that you must. These fascist states, and that's what they are. I think I'm going to use this one regularly now. Stay with me. It's going to be the FSA, the fascist states of America. They have embraced religion not because they believe in any of it, but because it helps control the masses. Because the people who do have faith will look to them to say, oh, they believe what I believe, even though nothing that they do displays that they actually believe what you believe. They put on a good show. Pat Robertson's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. His existence as a billionaire runs directly and contrary to the teachings of the New Testament. And yet, here he is. Millions of people of faith, good-hearted, decent people, follow and listen to him because they believe he is a man of faith. He is a billionaire. My own friends who will post and share memes from Joel Osteen because they consider him a man of faith, a good Christian man, soft-spoken, beautiful family. He's a mega multimillionaire. He's worth about $500 million. That bank account runs directly contrary to the teachings of the New Testament. Man cannot serve two masters, God and money. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Yet Mr. Osteen is approaching billionaire status. Because his type of control over you comes in a nice suit with a beautiful smile, wonderfully coiffed hair, a model-like wife, and wrapped in the Bible. But it's still control. Remember, it was Joel Osteen's mega church. He took over an arena, an old sports arena in Houston, made it his mega church. And when the hurricane hit Houston, where it rained nonstop for like 4 or 5 days or something like that, and I'm forgetting the name of the hurricane, and the civil authorities asked him, could you please open the church as a refuge for people? And he said, no, I'm doing that. I want those people in my church. They're homeless, they're dirty, they've had everything taken away from them because of the hurricane. And he said, I'm not letting those people in my church. How terribly Christian of him. I'm blanking on the name of the mega church preacher who implored his flock, just send him $5, $10, $25, $50, because he needed a new private jet. He didn't just need a private jet, he needed a new private jet. And yet he's telling you how to live. Into the chat I go. Randall mentions that Rhode Island was founded by additional Christian denominations who had to actually escape the religious fascism in Puritan Massachusetts. So they founded the colony of Rhode Island, Roger Williams. Mike Jackson reminds us that they've used religion since Nixon's Southern strategy. That Reagan launched his 1980 campaign in Mississippi, where the Department of Justice civil rights workers were murdered by the KKK Southern whites. Yeah, Religion has been twisted all throughout history. It's very, very interesting to know, or I shouldn't say to know. It's very, very funny. There's an episode of all the things in the world of Family Guy. It's called Road to the Multiverse, where Brian and Stewie travel. Stewie creates a device where he can travel to alternate universes, and they travel to an alternate universe that is 1,000 years ahead of where we are now. Same year, but they were 1,000 years ahead. And when Brian says, wow, this is the future, and he goes, no, it's the same year as what we left. It's like, well, what about all this technology and all this? He goes, well, the Dark Ages never happened. Christianity never became the dominant religion on earth. And therefore, the Dark Ages and the Inquisition never took place. So man is 1,000 years advanced. One of the not so subtle contexts of the comic and subsequent movies Black Panther are, look how far advanced an African nation could be without colonial interference. Without colonial fascist oppression. Look how advanced and powerful a Black nation could be if merely left alone. Oh, George tells me it was Jesse Duplantis. I don't remember that name at all. Told his followers that God told him he needed a 4th private plane and that his followers should pay for it. I'm sure that's exactly what God said, because God had nothing else to worry about. I know I've said this somewhat jokingly in past shows, but I do get a somewhat of a chuckle when news reporters will go to some southern town that a tornado has just destroyed, leveled everything, and they'll find people who've genuinely lost everything. Well, when you look at it, they didn't have a hell of a lot to start with, but whatever little they did have has been taken from them. And that they'll be, sorting through the wreckage and so on, and they'll interview them and they'll say, yeah, nothing's left, but we just have to thank God that we're still alive. Well, didn't God send the tornado to you? It's funny, he kept you alive, but he also sent the tornado. And if he didn't, who did? He or she. Randall mentions Robert Heinlein, who wrote his science fiction novels about alternate Earth universes. I think Heinlein is the one who wrote Starship, the movie that became Starship Troopers, and one of the very subtle subcontexts of that they talk about throughout the movie is citizenry. How much you have to give up to become a citizen of Earth, to gain citizen status, serve in the military, work for corporations, etc. One of the very subtle subcontexts of that. And I think that was Heinlein's writing, but I could very well be wrong. Mike mentions, I had 20-something employees tell me how in the tank they were for Trump in 2024. They told me they had, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading it because of the background. Told me they had video of Biden voicing the KKK, but couldn't produce it, of course. Yep, that's usually the way it is. Democrats did this, Democrats did this. Actually, it was Lindsey Graham. I read an article in The Guardian earlier today that Lindsey Graham was on 2 appearances this Sunday, as he does almost every Sunday. He's one of the Sunday show's favorites, where he did 2 appearances, one on CNN and one on NBC. And when questioned rather calmly, monotonely, and fairly, as Donna Bash on CNN is like to do, that because Senator Graham, of course, has introduced a national abortion ban. And he proceeded in one of his answers to say the Democrats want Abortion on demand, fully funded by the government all the way up till birth. And Dana Bash said, none of that is true, Senator. Can you tell me who said that? He started to scream back at her about how she was unfair and you people in the media, you do this and that. She goes, Senator, I'm not just, can you tell me who said it so we could research it? I'll call the quote up right now if you can tell me who said it. And he can't because no one ever did. And this goes back to where we started the program about Fox. If you just throw these lies out there, it was Goebbels himself that said, if you just repeat the same lie enough and loud enough and often enough, it becomes the truth. Or at least in people's minds. Franz mentions he's puzzled whether capitalism and Christianity can even be compatible. No. Very well-regulated capitalism, perhaps, like the Scandinavian countries and the lowland countries of Western Europe, and the very well-regulated capitalism we had in this country following the New Deal. But unregulated, unfettered capitalism is completely incompatible with the teachings of the New Testament. Jesus and the disciples lived communally. If one found food, it was shared by all. If any money was gathered, it was thrown into a communal pot to be used by all. They were socialists. A term they didn't have then, to be fair, but one we have now. They were socialists. They lived communally. The miracle at the Sermon on the Mount of the empty baskets that are taken out into the crowd when the disciples tell Jesus there's only 3 fish left and whatever loaves of bread. And he says, take what we have and give it to the people. Don't save it for us, give it to the people. The miracle part, of course, is that the baskets are overflowing. But the initial response is give whatever little we have to the other people. Let us not keep it for ourselves, give it to the people. 7:01 Eastern Time, 2 hours in the book. Our third hour begins, or at least as much of a third hour as we are going to do. I was almost going to stop, and I got too darn close to 7. But wherever you are on Facebook, and we've shared the program to 110 places, I think it is now, 109, 110. We did, I think, 100, 405, and then some of you continued to share the program, for which we are eternally grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing that. We could not do it without you. Stay where you are. Continue to watch, continue to listen, enjoy. Agree with me, disagree with me, throw things at the screen if it makes you that angry. But please send us a comment, send us a question, send us an opinion. We want to hear from you. You can do that exactly where you're watching right now, or you can come on over to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. It's right there on the screen. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net and TCP, the Culture Professional, the TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA. This is the third hour of the Kennedy Effect live with you for April 23rd, 2023. We will continue until I either run out of breath, or if the comments and questions keep coming in, we'll press forward. If not, we will end early. The plan next week. Oh, I should back up and tell you, if you ever miss any of our program, I believe this is the first week that George is going to take the program and slice it up into bits and release it on a few other additional platforms as an actual real podcast in bits. I think that's the first week that this is going to happen. I'm not certain of that, but I think it is. That is one way to catch up with our program. Another way is YouTube. George works his magic after the program is over. Usually by Tuesday or Wednesday, it is on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is also called That Other Side of Information. And you can find every single program of ours there. You can watch it all the way through. I understand a 2-hour program already is a lot of time to commit, but there's a pause button there. You can watch it in bits if you wish. Watch it throughout the week. Do it in half hours, hours, wherever it is you want to take it in. If you ever miss any of our program, you can always find it everywhere that we have shared it on Facebook and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. Coming up after us on hot101.net is The Villain's View with our dear friend and family member of this program. And he's become more of a family member. He really has become a very, very dear friend. And that's Sergeant Mac, Thomas McCormick. The Villain's View comes up on hot101.net and here on That Other Side of Information at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, following our program. If we end before 9, there's some music in between. Go grab some dinner, make some popcorn, grab a drink. Maybe not an adult beverage on a Sunday night if you have to work tomorrow, but get a nice glass of milk, get some cookies, whatever it is that you want to do. The Villain's View comes up following us at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on hot101.net and on our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. Our dear friend, April Riddick, who is responsible for this program, as I mentioned last week, is running for office. I hope you will Google that and find her. If we can come up with the link quick enough, we'll throw it in the chat. I hope you will search that out and support her if you can. She has taken all the work that she's always done in Allentown for the youth of that city and is going to take it into politics, into the office, if she should be lucky enough to win, and I hope that she will. And we, of course, are behind her 100%, so I hope you'll take a look at that as well. Let me flip through the Facebook page to see what else I might have missed. There were a couple articles in there that I definitely wanted to chat about before we go anywhere. Again, the phone number is wide open. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. There was a there were articles that I wanted to get to. Oh, I found this a very interesting article. Again, this is from The Guardian. It's been a very bad week for some of the other sources that I normally post from. Lehigh Valley Live, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, CBC, the BBC, The Guardian, the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC. The other ones seem to have a bad week. It was a big Guardian week for whatever reason. They had very good articles this week. This one I think is extremely interesting as we talk about I can't get my glasses on under my headset. Hang on one second. This headset's rather tight. I can't get my glasses on under it, and I can't read without them. So I had to do that very quick. As we talked in our first hour about the abortion pill debate and women's autonomy over their own bodies and the idea / ideal of personal privacy, which is an ideal, by the way, that Justice Alito, in his decision overturning Roe, basically says that you have no right of personal privacy. There is no such thing, which I find terribly hypocritical and ironic, considering Republicans are the party of personal freedom, personal liberties, the rugged individual. And now here is one of their own billionaire installed justices who has become a mega multimillionaire in his own right. Or not really in his own right. He's been handed all sorts of money by the right wing to produce the types of decisions that they want. Now saying you have no right of personal privacy. I find that very, very interesting. And it's just another form of hypocrisy by the right that yet all too many, almost unanimously, people that follow this, the MAGAs and so on, seem to either ignore, casually ignore, intentionally ignore. these complete conflicts and layers of hypocrisy within the right-wing movement. But here's an interesting one that comes on the heels, so to speak, of women and their own personal freedoms, personal liberties, bodily autonomy, etc. Again, this is an article from The Guardian, posted Thursday, that I'm not going to read it because it's more of a personal story than it is a news story. The US needs 1 million more electricians to hit climate goals. Can it recruit more women? Women face barriers in the sector, including harassment and exclusionary unions. But they would help resolve a crucial labor shortage and could also help close the gender wage gap. Amen. Yes, they could. And it is interesting that some unions are trying to keep women out. And when we talk about climate goals, Earth Day was yesterday. I believe it was the 30th. No, Earth Day is older than that. Earth Day goes back to the 60s. It was an anniversary of Earth Day. It was a meaningful one, and I'm forgetting the number. There has been news this week on the climate front that global ice is melting at a rate that scientists even themselves had not calculated. Global sea levels have risen by 6 inches. You might think to yourself, if you're standing at the Jersey Shore, well, 6 inches is not a lot. If you think about that 2/3 of the planet is covered by water, and then just at 51st anniversary, George tells me, thank you, George. George tells me all this stuff I don't know. And it's a lot. It really keeps him busy. If you think about all the ocean surface, all the surface of the earth that the oceans themselves take up, and just think of all that space and 6 inches of water, how much water that is. Stephanie Gosk of NBC, no, it wasn't her. Oh, I'm forgetting which report it was now, did a report from southern Manhattan where the city is beginning to worry that Battery Park in the south tip of Manhattan is going to be underwater. One of the great underreported things that I've talked about on this program is that when Mayor Bloomberg was leaving office, it was about 3 weeks before he was set to leave office, he held an outdoor press conference in Battery Park where he announced and outlined, I believe it was a $12 billion plan to build dikes, seawalls, wave breakers, movable walls out into the bay that would help protect lower Manhattan from the rising sea levels. And people thought he was nuts. Where's all that money going to come from? Why is he talking about this? Well, now lower Manhattan is becoming ever closer to sea level. Among the good news stories that came out this week, again from The Guardian. It was a good week for The Guardian. What can I say? Scores of right-wing, the article, I should say, is written by Adam Gabbett, Gabbatt, a writer for The Guardian. This came out on Friday. Scores of right-wing U.S. extremists were defeated in school board elections in April in a victory for the left and what Democrats hope could be effective for running against Republicans in the year ahead. In Illinois, Democrats said more than 70% of school board candidates it had endorsed won their races, often defeating the kinds of anti-LGBTQ plus culture warrior candidates who have taken control of school boards across the country. Republican-backed candidates in Wisconsin also fared poorly. Moms for Liberty a right-wing group linked to wealthy Republican donors, which has been behind book banning campaigns in the US, said only 8 of its endorsed candidates won elections to school boards, and other conservative groups also reported disappointing performances. I certainly hope that this is a trend that continues. Let's remember who Moms for Liberty is. They do not want freedom in schools. They're not trying to protect your children. They are backed by billionaires who want to end the public education system. Not just as we know it, but end it, period. They want education to be profitable, and they want to be the ones that make all the money. And not only do they just want families to spend their own money, they want government money. They want your money to go into their pockets to provide education for largely rich and white children. If you are poor, middle class, and of color, and you can't afford education anymore, you don't get it. That's Moms for Liberty. Whose liberty are these moms for? Theirs and their children, not yours, and not children of color, and not poor children, or developmentally disabled children, or autistic children. Only their lily white rich kids. Now, the sad bit of Moms for Liberty is that so many sheep have become part of this group. Families who are poor, or what is left of an increasingly smaller and smaller middle class, because they think that these people are actually standing up for the rights of their children. They're not. If the people backing Moms for Liberty had their way of so-called school choice and government vouchers, those vouchers would never be able to pay for the schools that you want to send your kids to. So where would your kids end up? Nowhere. Because the Moms for Liberty crowd don't want to improve public education. They don't want to save it. They don't want to protect your kids from so-called grooming and all this other bull, you know what? They want to end it. How do you drive up the price of something in a capitalistic society? You either increase demand or you dramatically decrease supply. What would the supply of education be if the entire public education system was shut down? And that the only way you could access it is if you could pay for it. That's the Moms for Liberty crowd. And one of their big donors has been open about this. He's given interviews in public that his job, his mission is to end public education as we know it. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. ProPublica from April 20th. I was late getting to this one. Ilya Moritz, I probably butchered that, is the author. When GOP attorneys general embraced January 6th, corporate funders fled from them. But now they're back. They fled while the PR campaign was good for corporations to walk away from Republican officials who supported the January 6th insurrection. But it's those same Republican officials that are in the employ of those Republican donors. So they were never going to walk away from them forever. The article reads, even as the Republican Attorneys General Association has leaned further into promoting Trumpism and sowing doubt about U.S. elections, major sponsors, including, I'm sure all of these names will shock you, Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot have resumed their contributions because the corporations buy the attorneys general. The attorneys general support the corporations. That's fascism. Period. End of story. That's fascism. An atmosphere of conviviality greeted Republican attorneys general arriving in New Orleans for their recent winter conference. It was Mardi Gras, and tourists traipsed through the lobby of the historic Roosevelt Hotel wearing colorful beaded necklaces, clutching cocktails. A few feet away from the check-in desk, if any of the attorneys general stopped to notice it, stood a replica of former U.S. Senator and Louisiana Governor Huey Long. His deduct box, which reportedly contained more than $1 million in cash donations from the businesses and wealthy individuals when the notoriously corrupt Long was assassinated in 1935. The attorneys general were in New Orleans for their own fundraising mission, albeit above board. That evening, in a ballroom one flight up, the Republican Attorneys General Association hosted an invite-only Super Bowl party where they mixed and mingled with donors and the alcohol flowed freely. There was reason to celebrate, having endured its worst crisis since it became a standalone entity in 2014. The Republican Attorneys General Association was thriving again. A tax-exempt political group representing more than half the state's chief legal officers had come in for particularly harsh criticism for its support of Trump's election fraud claims. In the wake of the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, the association's sister organization had set up robocall urging quote-unquote patriots to join Trump's January 6th rally on the Ellipse in Washington. So what the article basically goes on to say is that these corporate sponsors ran away from this organization because they didn't want to be linked to the insurrection of January 6th, but that they all were back throwing money into these attorney general because then they own them. They owned them. And they would do what their corporate masters told them to do. Period. It's a story as old as politics. The rich buy the people in office. To tell you that elections don't matter, a quote from Brian Taylor Cohen, the reporter. After winning full control of state government for the first time in 40 years, Michigan Democrats have now passed universal background checks on all gun sales, safe storage requirements, and they now have a red flag law. Don't let anyone tell you voting does not matter. Here closer to home, the Lehigh River was declared one of the 10 most endangered rivers in the country. Here's a particularly frightening article, and again speaks to the decline of this country, the returning of this country not to just the 50s but the 1850s, and returning humanity to the Dark Ages, the actual literal European Dark Ages, the Inquisition, no science, all religion, the plague, the Dark Ages. It's called history. Look it up. It's easy. The Iowa, this is written by Julia Carey Wong. This was posted, I posted this Tuesday. I believe I posted it Tuesday. The article came out on Tuesday, April 18th. In a pre-dawn session on Tuesday, the Iowa State Senate voted to allow children to work longer hours and serve alcohol. The latest move by the Republican-controlled state houses to combat a quote-unquote labor shortage by loosening child labor laws. The Republicans do not care about a labor shortage. There is no labor shortage. There is a shortage of people who are willing to work for wages that they cannot feed themselves. And the quote unquote a party of family values. We will now let teenagers serve alcohol. Republicans are not a party at all. They are not a political party at all. But they sure as hell are not the party of small government. They are not the party of family values. They are not the party of life. They are a wholly owned corporation by the billionaires, by a very, very small handful of people who have decided that democracy doesn't work for them anymore because it actually might hinder the amount of money they can collect, that they can hoard, that they can steal from you, from the 99%. The Iowa bill would expand the number of hours that children under 16 can work from 4 to 6 a day. It would allow minors to work in previously prohibited industries if they are part of a training program. I have a feeling an awful lot of Iowa teenagers are suddenly going to be in a training program. And it would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to serve alcohol with a parent's permission. They can't drink it, but they can serve it. It passed the state Senate by a vote of 32 to 17. 2 Republicans joined every Democrat in opposition. The vote took place just before 5 a.m. after protests and delay tactics by Democrats. We lost it. We do know slavery existed in the past, but one place it doesn't exist. That's in this bill, said Adrian Dickey, the Republican responsible for shepherding the bill passage. Oh, that's exactly what it is, sir. Child labor is a form of slavery because the children have no say. The parents do, hopefully. This bill actually makes it that the government has the say. No, Iowa. Oh, Democrats and labor advocates decried the bill, which they say will endanger children by allowing them to work in dangerous fields such as roofing, excavation, and demolition. No Iowa teenagers should be working in America's deadliest jobs, said Zach Walz, the Senate Minority Leader. Iowa Republican politicians want to solve the quote-unquote workforce crisis on the backs of children, literally. This is not a functioning political party. Corporations want cheap labor. Republicans are trying to give it to them, and they're doing it on the backs of children. 3 minutes left in the program. Let me tell you what's coming up next week. A very special guest, at least, is planned for next week. His name, you might know him, you might recognize him. He's all over social media. His shorter videos have literally tens of millions of views, all summed up. He is known publicly as Big Red Celt, or Celt, I guess, the Celts came into Old Britain, but it's the Celtic Football Club, so I guess it's the Big Red Celt, or Celt, depending on how you look at it. He is due to join us next week to talk about the work that he does talk about his videos and so on and so on. It's a pretty cool get for us. He's a big social media star. And I actually do find some of these folks that have become so prolific through social media to kind of give us hope that when a guy like him, big dude, big long beard, somebody that if you walked past him on the street, you would probably think was a MAGA Republican, you know, just by outward looks, which you should be better than to try to judge people that way, but it happens. It just is a fact of life. It happens. He is out there created his fame and is now using it to try to do what we do here. Not that he's following my lead, and that is just educate people and talk very plainly and straight and honestly to people about what is happening to them. So he is due to join us. He is scheduled to join us next week. That is all we have for tonight. It is 7:30. We're going to say goodnight. I am probably going to be in bed within an hour and a half. Oh, I knew it. Did you not just hear what I said?
Yeah, and you know what?
What?
You can cut the show an hour short.
That's what am I being lazy?
I said, be lazy.
Yeah, well,
Bob Marley.
well, you know what I said before. It's look, I love, but everything around that surrounds this show is not fun. Except this part. When I turn this on, when George is with me, and good folks like you call in and pay attention and listen and watch. And I will carry a show as long as I can. I'm not going to beg people to come on anymore. I did that for an awful long time. But it's kind of hard for one person to talk straight for 4 hours without a commercial, without a break, without a bathroom break, without music, without.
Well, you have had some guest call-ins tonight.
Oh, I have. I've been very fortunate and I appreciate it deeply. I truly do. But the actual guest part is becoming really onerous, like really onerous. But hey, what do you got on your mind?
First off, again, I apologize. I couldn't get two-way communication till right now. My oldest daughter, her family, 2 grandchildren, my middle daughter, her husband, her family and 2 grandchildren, they just all finally took off after dinner and playing.
Well,
Well,
it's Sunday. I say
that-
every week. I say every week that it's still Sunday. It's traditional. It's traditional family time. You're not. Nobody's docking your pay.
No, and it's like there's a Facebook group page I started following when the pandemic started,
Mm-hmm.
February 2020, and they go live every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Well, I used to watch that live and comment and stuff, but obviously I'm going to Sergeant Mac, the villain, at 9 p.m. On Sunday night now. Of course, by then everybody's in bed, gone. I can be totally 100% in step with, in communication with, watching, comment on his Facebook page. But I appreciate what you do, Jeff. And you talked about a lot of subjects tonight, and most of them, if you let it happen, can leave you feeling very depressed of the things here in America that everybody should be concerned about, but they can't be. Not the majority of citizens can't be. They're single parent households, or they're dual working middle class households, and you know, uh, raising their children, so being baseball court coaches or basketball court coaches or lacrosse coaches or whatever. And yeah, it's hard. It's very, very hard. When God bless my parents, their generation, the Depression generation, the World War II generation, whichever you want to call it, there was only so many things to do to volunteer and help in society. Yeah, one of the first was religious institutions, church, synagogue,
Mhm.
Whatever, but then there was a few other. There was Boy Scouts, there was Girl Scouts, Campfire Girls. There was some sport, but they were all sponsored by either school or like, hey, I grew up when I grew up in Wichita in Cub Scouts. Yeah, our Little League, our pack had a Little League baseball team. Now it's sports league everywhere. I mean, society has radically changed in some way of who supports things like sports with children, or who supports development of children's minds. I firmly believe that Boy and Girl Scouts do that, coming from a multi-generation scouting family. And then there's other things, I mean, there's environmental groups, and the list goes on. It's endless. Yeah, life is very, 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 very hectic.
You will remember a couple weeks ago, I talked about the Morning Joe, thank God. And it was Steve Ratner, who is by no means a progressive economist, even though he served in the Obama administration. But then again, Obama didn't have any progressive economists
No.
in his administration.
But alternative,
He
when
was
we elected him the first time because we were snookered that he was a progressive.
he
Right.
ran like Roosevelt and governed like Clinton.
Exactly.
But my
And
point is that Ratner was talking about this report that was studying American society basically since more or less since the onset of the Reagan Revolution, except it didn't go back that far. And some of the key findings were that Americans were giving less money to charity, they were less charitable with their time, and that they were desperately concerned with how they were going to keep a roof over their heads, keep food in their stomachs, keep their kids in school, and that we were not replacing ourselves as a population. Point of that being, that's exactly what Reaganism was designed for. So why am I bringing this up? Because when you talk about not volunteering as much, or not having or even being aware of what's going on around you from a governmental political point of view, well, how do you do that when you spend so much of your time just trying to keep the family fed? This is exactly what Reaganism was designed to do, was to make us all desperate. And that if we,
and I said decades and decades and decades ago,
if we were so desperate to just keep a job, and that job was the only way we could see a doctor, the only way we could feed our kids, and that the jobs became worth less and less and less, that they paid less and less and less because the unions were gone. We became private contractors, wages were suppressed. We would just be happy enough to have a job. and we'd be so consumed with keeping a roof over our heads, we wouldn't have time to complain about politics or complain about how the government was running. To put on top of that, if we didn't teach government, it's really hard to complain about something when you don't understand how it operates. This is all the way it was designed. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a
Oh, no, it was a political game plan.
this is exactly how it was designed to work. And thank God. That's why the younger generation, the whatever letter we're putting on them right now, Z, I guess, I don't even know. But
Well, yeah,
the
the
next generation,
generation
that the first generation voters, that 18 to 24,
uh,
that vote
millennials.
that vote in record numbers in 2022, the generation that Republicans fear the most, which is exactly why they're trying to strip them of the right to vote. This generation is somewhat of a minor miracle because they don't remember a time when this nation ran under the New Deal. They don't remember a time where we had the largest middle class on earth, where we were the richest nation, where we were the largest industrial nation, the largest banking nation, where we loaned money all over the globe instead of owing money everywhere, where we did things like the Peace Corps. We built roads and water systems and schools in other countries. The Chinese do that now. The Chinese are taking over most of Africa without ever firing a shot. This generation doesn't know any of it. They didn't grow up in any of it. All they've grown up in.
And they still don't since 1999, since Columbine, they still don't know not having school shootings. And they sure the heck now in the last 6-7 years, they sure didn't know about mass killing after mass killing in a synagogue, in a Christian church, wherever. You know, a supermarket, a factory, yeah.
They're a miracle. I don't think it's a stretch to say it. They are in a sense a political miracle.
And most of my generation, the baby boomers, most of my generation stood up against the Vietnam War. They stood up for civil rights. They stood up for women's rights. And I don't know what happened to most of my generation. I mean, I've got a heck of a lot of friends my age that are in my category, but there's a heck of a lot of people I know that I went to high school with. They didn't go to college. And they are just they're not just diehard Republicans now. They're diehard Trumpite dictators now, if they get their way. I don't understand how you can, go from having long hair and smoking joints and having safe sex and since the birth control pill came out in '68 to I'm against all that shit now. I don't understand that because I'm still not like that. You know me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still the idealistic hippie Democrat, the progressive, supporting all human rights. And yeah, this stuff just drives me insane. I'm just glad I raised 3 daughters, and they married 3 good guys that recognize this is all crap. I'm just glad that I'm married to a much smarter woman, academically more higher educated than me, that was raised by her family, to support all people, to be liberal with love, to be liberal with caring, to be liberal with reaching out and try to help fellow people, whether here in this country or around the world. So yeah, I'm blessed, man, from that background.
You gonna
And
be
my
you gonna be here next week?
what?
You gonna be here next week? Big guest next week.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely I'll be there. I'll be listening live and watching
Alright,
live
don't
next
be-
week.
Don't be late. Don't make me dock your pay.
Yeah, no. Hey, me and George want to pay.
I know. Yeah, I know. If anybody's getting paid first, it's George. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely.
Go have a good week, my friend.
Hey, you have a good week, you and your wife,
And
and
you stay healthy, for goodness sake. Stay out of trouble. Oh, well, don't stay out of trouble. Just stay healthy. Why don't we do that?
I'm my COPD is getting really bad. But hey, I was a really idiot that smoked
Yeah, I know.
14 to age 70 before I quit. And yeah, it doesn't matter. I quit almost 9 months now. It doesn't matter. The damage I did, stupidity I caused on my
Mhm.
lung, heart, and everything else. Well, yeah, Randy is the village idiot sometimes.
Yeah, I have to say, I get a kick out of those. You know, the most aired commercials on TV are for prescription drugs. We're one of only 2 countries on earth that allow the open televised advertisements for prescription drugs. And I'm sure you've all seen the Trelegy commercials, which is a COPD medicine. And what's interesting is they'll show these people in their homes. There's ashtrays everywhere. There's a haze of smoke. There's cigarette advertisements as if there were some sort of old memorabilia hanging up in these people's homes. And the commercial itself says nothing about quitting smoking. It just says, take this medicine and you'll be fine. I'm guessing you're telling me that's really not entirely true.
No,
What a surprise. What a surprise that that's not really entirely true.
my only brother, who's 8 years older than me and never lived anywhere except Wichita, Kansas, but he was a freshman and Kansas employee so he went to college. When my father was transferred from Wichita back here to Delaware County to the then Vertol helicopter company. And yeah, Roger, man, he's to the point he's on oxygen 24/7, and he's only 8 years older. So I'm not, and I've seen him go down, even with drugs, even using oxygen, from when he was 70 to now 78. So yeah, the drug. Hey, you know, end of story. All mass media on TV. I don't care if it's CNN. I don't care if it's MSNBC, and obviously Fox. The first 2 I said, how? Probably it seems to me at least 50% or maybe up to 60% of their paid commercials are friggin' drugs, pharmaceutical drugs.
Well, remember, they're not in the information business. They're in the money making business.
No, because they're all owned by corporations.
That's why during the Trump administration, when they were Ajit Pai, who was the head of the FCC at that point, who was a former Verizon executive, was pushing the end of net neutrality because it was good for corporations. None of the media talked about it. Chris Hayes did, I think, two spots on it. Rachel Maddow did 1. That was it. A total of about 15-ish minutes, maybe 20, was spent on the end of net neutrality. Well, why? Because Comcast owns MSNBC, a cable company, and Time Warner owns CNN, a media, cable, and internet company.
And ABC is owned by now Walt
Yes.
Disney.
They didn't care about the end of net neutrality. They stood to make money off of the end of net neutrality. So of course they didn't talk about it. But yeah, and
Yeah.
I would
Well-
venture to guess, especially in the mornings and on Sundays, which is when I tend to watch most of my MSNBC. I think I'd be shocked. I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm only guessing because of based on how I watch. I wouldn't be surprised if 75% of those commercials were prescription drugs. And it's usually always for the same kind of drugs. Hair loss, COPD, what's the skin?
Oh,
Dry
eczema.
skin. No, the dry skin. Shit. George.
Eczema.
Eczema. Yeah, okay. It's for that.
Oh yeah.
It's not can't or for the AIDS drugs, which will drive you down to an unrecognizable, a scientifically unrecognizable level of virus. It doesn't cure you, of course, because we want you to take the medicine for the rest of your life and make money off of that.
The HIV, to get you down to 0.
Yeah, George is right too. Some diabetes medications. Oh, you can lose 20 pounds if you take this.
I can have sex.
Yeah.
I can have homosexually, or I can have sex heterosexually. Because I have HIV.
Careful.
But
Careful.
0.
Careful. Let's not get into that, please. Let's not get into that. My point is that cure is not profitable. That was the point I was trying to make. And keep people on a medicine that they need to take every month, week, 3 months, 4 months, every year, something, whatever, for the rest of their lives is way more profitable than actually curing anything. But that's a different topic for a different day. Go be healthy. Go have a good week. Come back next week. Big Red Celt next week.
Cool.
And
Very
please,
cool.
and please send my best to the family, to your wife and the family, and stay out of trouble.
Yeah. Yes, my wife. I said, yeah, my middle name is definitely Trouble. And I've been in too much of that in my 70+ years life. Yeah.
All right. You be good, my friend.
I love you.
All right. Have a good night and have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. George, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we say goodnight?
No. Good night. Sorry, I'm pressed for time. I'm
You
doing
are
a million.
profound in your-
I'm doing a million
Found
things
in your
here.
brevity, sir.
No, no. Say good night, Crazy. Good night, Crazy.
Yeah, good night, Gracie. Yeah, Big Red Celt next week, or Celt. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it.
Mhm.
I know that you've seen him all over social media, folks, and he's a really cool dude. He does some neat things. He really has mastered. There's a handful of folks out there who have really to be honest, on both sides of the aisle, but there's a real handful of people who have mastered these short form videos to just that are 3, 4, 5, usually no more than like 7 minutes. They can really break down kind of what's going, the big topics of the day, so to speak. You know, they do these commentaries and just seem to be very concise and very simple and plain spoken about it. He is one of them, and we really look forward to having him next week. We also thank the Villains View because they happen to be tuning into the first few minutes of that. I was sharing it. I can't say that I always watch all of Sergeant Mac's show because I'm in bed. Plus through the time difference too. He's an hour behind us, if you will. It's only, it's almost 8 o'clock Eastern here. It's 7 o'clock there. So, he does, for his local time, his show is 8 to 10. And well, I get up at 4 or 5 in the morning for work, so I can't always stay up and listen to it. But I did see that he was on that one week, and I'm like, man, how do you get these folks? And ended up passing on our information to to Big Red Celt, so he's going to be on next week. So a little bit of guest sharing, if you will. It's one of the nice things about having such a good friend as Sergeant Mac, and George and I had a production meeting with Sergeant Mac earlier in the week. He now has, it's staggering. He has 1 million followers on TikTok. 1 million. It is staggering. We have 320. Actually, it's not even 320. I'll tell you what it is in a second. I think it's 318. Oh, I hope that's not. Oh, no, I take that back. It's 317. We lost one? Wasn't it 318 on Tuesday? Or Wednesday? What the hell day did we meet with them?
Yeah, I thought it was 18. Yeah, that's,
I
sorry,
lost one? How the hell did that happen?
I thought it was 318.
Dear God. I can't catch a break. That's freaking hilarious. It really is. That's nuts. That's funny. I don't even know what to say about that. Oh my God, that's funny. We actually lost one. How'd that happen? But he does. He has 1 million now. So anyway, that does it for us. We will return next week. 23/7 is the 30th, April 30th. From 5 p.m. Eastern time, we will return. If you missed any of the program, go to YouTube. Probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Georgia Workers Magic. It'll be up there. We actually, in the last couple of weeks, have gained, I think, 2 or 3 new subscribers to the YouTube channel, and we are very, very grateful to all of you who either watch it, check out the videos. If you subscribe, it's wonderful for us. YouTube tends to take you more seriously the more people that subscribe. But that doesn't mean you can't watch the videos if you don't subscribe. They're sitting right there. You can tap on them, watch them anytime you want, watch them in, watch the 2, 3, 4 hours straight through, watch it in little bits. However, it's there for you to see, especially if you missed any of the program. Of course, you can also catch it anywhere that we shared it on Facebook. It stays there. You might have to scroll a bit to find it, but it's there. And I think that's about all the damage we can do for 1 week. For everyone at TCP, Whitney, Marquise, Andrew, Taekwon, the family at TCP, the TCP Media Group, for DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and all the DJs and all the listeners around the world at hot101.net. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your broadcast day and to be part of the hot101.net family, and to the listeners to let us take up a little bit of space in your speakers or earbuds or whatever device or however it is that you take in hot101.net. For Lynn and George, for April Riddick, for France, and of course for Kristen, who's waiting downstairs. We're going to go have a little bit of dinner before bed, which is coming up rapidly. That's everybody. We've done all the damage we can do for 1 week. We will return next week from 5 p.m. Eastern, live on April 30th. Big Red Celt will be our guest. We're very much looking forward. He's our scheduled guest. Sometimes life gets in the way. I like to keep that little bit of space there for folks. Sometimes life gets in the way. He is our scheduled guest for next week. But we thank you for being here and being part of our program. To our callers, to everyone who commented, to everyone who came in. Again, if you missed any of the live program, check us out on YouTube. I think George is actually going to be doing podcast work this week, I think, as well, cutting the program up into sections and playing it different. I don't know. We talked about it earlier in the week. I think I might have faded out for that part of it. It got technical and I got a little lost, but I think him and Mac are working that out. The Villain's View comes up in an hour on hot101.net. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific on hot101.net, and right here on our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. I am Jeff Kennedy. Thank you for being part of the program. Thanks for giving us a try. If you're new to the program, thanks for sharing. Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for giving us a chance. We will see you next week on the 30th. On the 30th, he tried to say, now I know it's time to go because I can't talk anymore. We will see you in a week. Until then, I will keep you in my thoughts. I will pray for all of you to be healthy, well, and happy. And I ask you to please take care of yourselves and each other. We will see you next week on the 30th. Take care, everyone.